oh my God, I loved this resume, but they
Yeah.
just can't even get the words out of their mouth, like to your point. And
Yeah.
I think if you just remember that you're having a conversation with someone that actually wants to hire you, they want to hire you.
Wow.
You know what
That's
I mean?
huge.
They
Yeah.
want you to win. They're not like wasting their time because they had holes in their schedule.
Yeah.
They literally want to say yes at the end. And all you have
Yeah.
to do is talk authentically about yourself and that it's just a conversation.
Ken from the Leaders Lab, man, it is great to meet you via Zoom. So I appreciate your
Yes,
time
sir.
today.
Of
Yeah.
course. Good to meet you too.
Yeah, and we just recently connected, with all of been some recent layoffs in the industry. It's as kind of as a sales manager, watching, 90% of a sales team get laid off in an industry I'm very familiar with. It was tough to watch. And my heart just broke for those people. And it seemed like it resonated, right? We posted on LinkedIn and people just started. The coolest part was people just started reaching out. The
Yeah.
community just kind of came around, and you were one of those folks. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate the willingness and generosity of your time to say, "Hey, let's do this," right? So I said,
Yeah.
"Hey, I want to talk to some recruiters. I want to get some information out for people." When you get that kind of news, you go through all the ranges of emotion, and
Sure.
it's tough. And so with that, I wanted to just kind of ask you, some questions. Obviously, you've placed thousands of executives and salespeople, and it just seemed like such a great resource. So thank you for your time, and more importantly, let me thank you for your service.
Thanks a lot.
So yeah, man, I appreciate it. I have some questions I'd like to ask, and then we can kind of walk through it from there. But when you get to an inflection point like losing a job, it's
Hmm.
the hardest part is knowing where to start. And so when
Hmm.
you're navigating that journey, when I look at your resume and your
Hmm.
LinkedIn profile, it is just it's seemingly a natural progression, right? So
We
the
leave
way
the bad stuff out, Steve.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's kind of what I want to do for salespeople is like, hey, there's a story there. When you look at your Indeed and you look at, like we were talking a little earlier, and it was like your resume looks incredible, and then mine looks like Forrest Gump, right? So it's just I had an entrepreneurial journey in the beginning. You had a corporate, and then now entrepreneurial. So it's very different. But
Mhm.
when you're in those inflection points, and when you're looking for that next job, how do you evaluate opportunity? Everyone needs a paycheck, but
Yeah.
when you did that, you obviously coming out of the military, you didn't have where you ended as the plan, right?
Sure.
It's
Sure.
evolved. How do you look at all these opportunities? Because what you've done is fantastic. The people you've
Thank you.
interviewed on your podcast, amazing. How do you look through that lens of opportunity, or what lens do you look at it through?
I think so. First of all, thanks for doing this, and what you were doing really did resonate with me because I also worked in the uniform industry for a long time, and I was a VP of sales over there. And even though we're all competitors in the moment, right? We're in our small little world of whatever we do. It doesn't matter if you're selling washing machines or hand
Yeah,
soap or whatever. It becomes your world, and the other people are the quote unquote enemy or whatever, but they're sort of the enemy on the same playing field. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh my gosh, an entire team just got taken out.
yeah,
And we know who these guys are, right? And we know who these girls are, and you can feel for them, especially when it's super widespread like that. And I think it's yeah, I was really feeling for them, and I saw you posting, and I saw the work that you were doing, and it just looked genuine to me, and I know that it is now after we've gotten a chance to talk and trade messages. And so anyway, I wanted to start by thanking you, for taking the initiative.
yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, it feels kind of bad because all these people are going through this tragedy of like losing their job and everything, and
Right,
I'm like, man, if there's any way I can help. And then I
right,
said that, and people started reaching out, and then the cool part is all the response from the companies reaching out and saying,
yeah,
hey, we know who these people are, we love them. How can we get? And so I just became this.
sure,
I think somebody said it's like you've become like this online job posting thing, and I'm like,
yeah,
I'm just trying to get people's info because you know what, you're right. It is kind of a kindred spirit. You know what that works like. You know how hard
yeah,
it is. you know what it takes to do it, and you see all these great people now not being able to do it. Where do they land? And so
Right.
that's when I see that, I just get so, it's like, man, I know these people, and
Yeah.
how can I help, right? And then the
Yeah.
response was awesome. And
Totally.
yeah, so when you've been, not that you've been in that position, but you've been in positions of looking for your next opportunity, and how did you take the time to evaluate those opportunities? Like, what should these folks
Yeah.
be doing when they're evaluating this next opportunity?
I think there's two parts to it. One is understanding the value that you might bring to someone, right? So who am I? What do I do? I'm in the uniform business. I'm an outside sales rep, meaning I'm a B2B hunter style sales rep, right? And even though in your world, because maybe you've done that for a little while and you might be like, well, there's a lot of B2B, you and I both know pure hunters that are actually good at their job, that exceed quota year after year, are hard to come by. So knowing what you bring to the table means you know how you can add value somewhere, right? And so I think that's really, really, really important. It's also really important to be able to articulate that, right, in a real and meaningful way. The other thing I'd be looking for is, so if I know who I am and I know what my value is, then what industry or industries or companies do I want to target? They're going to value that, right? And what characteristics am I looking for? Do I want a small company, a big company, high growth industry, startup, or whatever? It's funny because yeah, my LinkedIn looks okay because it doesn't say the time I didn't make quota, right? We
Yeah,
never put
yeah,
that on there.
right.
But I was forced with that, like when with the first company I owned in my 20s. um so, it wasn't out of inspiration, it was out of desperation. I mean, I had gotten out of the army, I didn't have my college degree, and no one was going to pay me what I thought was worth. So I guess I was just like, well, I guess I'll just do it myself, right? I guess I'll just start a business. And we had some success there, and then we got bought by a Fortune 500 company. And so it all looks good on paper, but it wasn't like a big, well thought out plan. It was simply like, my options are limited, but I think I know what value I bring. And so I'm going to kind of do something on my own. So I went a different route. But I think with any of these guys, again, it's always just how can you add value? Where can you add value? Who's going to appreciate that value where
Yeah,
you can land and be there for a while?
yeah. I very similar story too. I came out of that desperation of how am I going to afford a family and a wife and
Right.
kids and do all this stuff, and I kind of went that entrepreneurial route, just I guess now like you, early. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's great. And then you
Leverage
get
is
into
a,
that. Go ahead.
Yeah, not to interrupt you, but like leverage is a powerful tool, leverage on yourself. I used to love it actually when young sales reps said, I'm getting married and buying a house. I'd be like, good,
Yeah,
like you need to
yeah,
make some money.
yeah, yeah. I know what you need. Commission.
Yeah,
Let's go.
yeah,
Yeah. Hey, what's the best way to tell the story? You get laid off or you lose a job or things like that happen. What's the best way I can tell that story as a candidate into my next role while being respectful to the last company? And and that's the thing I will say. With this company doing a lot of layoffs, I even had a lot of sales managers who did the layoffs, heartbroken folks who
yeah,
were sorry that they had to do it, and you could tell it was tearing them apart. But it's those things happen, and I want to give all the respect to those guys that they deserve. And it was awesome to see come out. But they were all like, "Can you help? Can you help? Can you help?" And one of the things I thought was if I could talk to some folks like you and really understand they don't know, or I didn't know how to tell that in my career, how to tell that story of something didn't go right.
yeah,
And some of these folks are 5 months in and got laid off. I
yeah,
spoke to one, it was day one and got laid off. And
yeah.
it's, how would a candidate tell that story to a prospective employer?
Well, I think it's much easier in a situation like this, believe it or not, because you weren't singled out. It wasn't 20% of the sales force, right? It was, I
Yeah.
don't have the exact numbers, but I think it was the greater majority of
Yeah.
it, right? So
Yeah.
so that's an easy story to tell, right? Maybe it doesn't look great on a resume, but it's explainable, and I think most employers will get it. And also, in this case, is a publicly traded company, so it's not something anecdotal. It's not something they're having to take your word on it. Like it's out there, right? And you can
Yeah.
point them towards that. But to answer your question, I mean, I think the way that I would explain it You never want to bash a previous employer. It just kind of speaks to what you might say about the current one down the road,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I think what you can say is like, look, was brought on, learned a lot. Unfortunately, they did a riff that was super deep, super widespread.
Yeah.
I was part of that, but it involves 80, 90% or 50% or whatever it is
Yeah.
of the force. And I think people will get that. And I think you actually will get a win out of handling that with business acumen. You know what I mean? Handling it in a way that like, well, I got hired, I got screwed over, and I get like nobody wants to hear that. They know what happened. I think what's more important is how you handle that bad situation, you know?
Yeah. I heard I forget where I heard it from, but I heard it. They said if you can learn to make your skeletons dance,
Ooh,
and
that's good. Yeah,
that was just getting an opportunity to, hey, things happen. And I think you're to your point, it's that this big rift did happen. You can see that they did it, the news reported on it, yada yada yada. But that understanding of like this isn't, I think when I look at interviewing folks, and if they were to come into me and say, yes, this happened, but it didn't define me,
right.
that I see that kind of victor mentality of like
I agree.
I take over. That's where I
I
really
agree.
think they excel. So hearing you say that, I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I would want to see in a salesperson sitting across from me. Is like, yep, it happened. Here I am,
Yeah.
and I'm ready to go.
No,
So
it wasn't their fault. I mean, I think there's a difference. Like sometimes people have patterns in their career where
mm,
you're looking at them and they go, you know, 1 year here and then 5 years here and then 1 year here. And as an interviewer, you would go back and go, tell me about these two like 1 year things. Cause as a hiring manager, like a little bit of that happens, right? You made the wrong choice. Sometimes you just made the wrong choice, not the
yeah,
place you needed to be or whatever. It wasn't the best fit. But if I go to the 1 year and they say, oh, well, that organization had some money troubles and they had to do whatever and I was caught in that. And then the follow up question would be like, oh, well, was it the whole team?
yeah,
Well, it was just me and one other guy. And it's like, well, why is it always you and one or two other people, and then you start asking deeper questions like, where were you ranked on the sales team? And you know what I mean? And so if it's a pattern, that's one thing. But I think for a lot of people that got caught in this, it's not a pattern, right? It's just a one time thing. And I literally think they can frame it the right way and just move on, you know?
yeah. I think that locus of control, right? Like who's at fault, and I think
Yeah.
I saw an Adam Grant um, post where he said, if I could, I'd love to see a low light resume. I
Right.
know you failed. I've failed.
Right.
Like I
Right.
get it. Just tell me and let's talk about it because is it you, me, or how does this fit? And
Yeah.
I mean, you brought up tenure.
Yeah.
It's like the statistical average of a salesperson is 18 months.
Wow.
Yeah, with a 50% failure rate, regardless of experience. How
Hmm.
how do you how would you coach somebody on tenure and explaining that when they go to the role? And let's not the layoff stuff, but just hey, tenure is tough to talk about.
I think it depends a lot on the industry. It's funny, like we're working on a job right now, and it's with a tech startup, and it's a high level role, and it's a high level role where we're actually expecting people to have between 1 year and maybe 3 years tenure at a time, because that's just the nature of the beast. Like, go into a startup, build their sales organization, move on to a bigger one, and that's kind of normal in that space. But in the B2B services world that you and I have played in for a lot of years, tenure is important, and I think if it's too choppy, it's going to be a problem. What is too choppy, I guess would be the next question. And I think it just depends on, if I'm seeing a trajectory in someone's career that even if it's a gradual line going up, it's still a line going up.
Yeah,
I can sort of live with the every 2 or 3 years.
yeah,
Like, hey, went there, made President's Club, made quota, made whatever, got an offer to come over here and take more control, and I did well there. And I'm like, okay, I can get it. It's still a little more movement than I'd like to see in this sector, but I get it because there's a story there, right? But if
yeah,
it's like, oh, I started with company XYZ is a rep. I was there 2 years. Oh, what happened? It just didn't really work out. I had a conflict with my manager, so I went over here. Okay, what'd you do there? Same kind of role, did this. They weren't a great company. We had a product that, and so it's just full of all this information where nothing's moving and it's just a
Yeah.
flat line,
Yeah.
which really starts the way interviewers, not just recruiters, but interviewers start looking at that as a flat line is almost the same as a declining line
Yeah.
because your career
Yep.
is aging, but your
Yeah.
trajectory is flat. And that's not a good thing to see.
Yeah. I love the word because I love the word that you said, trajectory. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's where, when you're crafting the story, trajectory is why I did what I did to get here. Right. I think
Yes.
I think you nailed that. That's a great word for that. Because I was trying to figure out how, hey, when you look at this resume, what matters? And trajectory
Yeah.
is the absolute perfect word for that.
By the way, the other thing that I would look at in all of this, the questions that you're asking right now, is if you can address it within your resume in advance and on your LinkedIn profile, those two can kind of marry up a little bit. But if I had Vestas experience right now that started in, whatever, March of this year and ended in August of this year,
Yeah.
um, I would put a sentence under there, right, that said, learned a lot as a B2B sales rep, whatever it is, made 20 appointments a week, closed 5 sales a week, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, my time was cut short due
Yeah.
to a corporate initiative to downsize the sales team. Like, that's
What
fine.
That's interesting because I've never heard somebody say, "Hey, put an explanatory sentence there." Because
Yeah, I
usually
would.
we're taught on resumes like your KPIs, your president's clubs, your percent to quota, all those things. It's okay to put in there like a summary sentence under those kind of jobs.
I think if you know there's going to be a question around it because it was only 5 months, it's like you
Yeah,
might as well address the question in advance. Because you and I know about this layoff because we've worked in the industry, we have contacts in
yeah,
the industry, and
yeah,
so we're seeing it, right? We're seeing it in our LinkedIn
yeah,
feeds. But if they go apply to whatever, XYZ Manufacturing, General Motors, whoever they're going to go to, they don't know.
yeah,
This is not as big of an industry as we think it is. And so it just explains it right out of the gate so that someone on the whether it's an applicant tracking system or whether it's a clerk in the HR department or whatever isn't just looking at it and going, oh, 2 jobs in the last 3 years. No. And at least there's an explanation there that someone goes, okay, I get it, we can probably just void this one out. Now within that, I'd still say, even if I was there 5 months, even if I was like, I didn't even get my territory until June, you still want to state the things that you've done well.
yeah,
So, was top 20% of my training class,
yeah,
crushed I got the MVP of the
yeah,
regional role playing
yeah,
exercise on whatever. I mean, it's
yeah.
like, okay, he was doing a good job and the company had a big riff and it is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Yeah, that explanatory, just even the I spent five, because you're right, so many other folks don't know, what these jobs do.
Yeah.
And just explaining that, but also, hey, 15 weeks of sales training is a big
Yeah.
deal, and that
Yeah.
ongoing sales training, that's a lot to, like, oh, you're already up to speed here. Like, this works.
Totally.
Excuse me. So when you talk about um on those resumes, what is tell me this, is the objective important anymore? Like, what's important? Because you got AI things, kind of trolling these things to look over what's important, right? And so you see, like, I don't know what to put on here anymore. It's like, should I hashtag something? Should I put on, I know the objective. The objective is for you to get a job and get paid. I don't need to hear your objective. Like, what's important on a resume today that's going to stand out in an applicant tracking system or what have you?
I am still a fan of tailoring the resume a little bit to the job because, you know, I bet I could ask you, like, out of the last, 10 interviews you did or were involved in, if it was your sales managers doing it for frontline reps, how many of those did what you would call an adequate amount of research? And with the tools that we have right now, it takes 1 minute. I mean, I literally can just open up ChatGPT
Yeah,
and say, I'm interviewing for a sales rep position for the, whatever, Dow Corning.
yeah,
in
Yeah.
Columbus, and here's a link to the job description. Can you tell me a little bit about Dow Corning and this job? And
Yeah.
it'll just be like, boom, here you go. And all I got to do is read it.
Yep.
And still, even with the tools that we have today, I would say 80% of the people do very little. They don't,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I think the idea of going in and saying, I want you guys, in my summary, it might say, seeking a role with your company as a sales rep, because I'm, proven hunter style sales rep that has a desire to move up into leadership and spend the next 20 years with one, or whatever that is,
Yeah.
whatever's
Yeah.
true to you. And I don't like leaning too heavy on AI. AI to me doesn't make bad people good. It
Mhm.
makes good people more efficient. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you still
100%.
got to ask the right questions to get an answer. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
But it will help, and it'll help with like resume building. It'll help with stuff like, hey, here's my summary right now, but I'm interviewing for a job with Nike. Can
Yeah.
you tailor this description to fit this role at Nike, as an example?
Yeah. You see so many people where they're, it's like, I think what you said about AI, I get encouraged when I see a lot of reps using AI because it's like prompting an AI system, ChatGPT, what have you, prompting it is to me a skill set very akin to asking good questions, and so that,
Exactly.
and that's what I
And by
look
the
for.
way, yeah, by the way, if they're doing it for their own resume, they're going to do it for your prospects.
Yes,
They're going to go, I
exactly.
have a meeting today at 2 o'clock with a plumbing company. Here's their website.
Yep.
Here's what's going on with them. How can I maybe tailor a solution that's going to fit them? Right.
Yeah.
Like it's good. It shows that they're resourceful.
And for me, it shows that they're super curious. Like
Yes,
a great rep is always very curious. So seeing them, hey, that research doesn't tell me you're prepared. It does, but in great. It for me, it tells me how curious you are of a salesperson. I know that's a talent that you're going to be able to use out in the field to sell the products or service I need you to sell. I think
I
that's
agree.
absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love what you're doing at the Leaders Lab, and I really want to talk about this because I think I saw that you had extensive experience with NLP, neuro linguistic programming. So
Hmm.
when you get that interview, you get that part in front of it, whether it's in Zoom or an in-person interview. What can we do to kind of stand out from another person interviewing for that job? How do I win that job with NLP and what you have with that?
I think the people that, again, going back to like knowing what your value is and knowing how to talk about it, I think going in with the right ammo, basically, right, for the interview, and just being able to speak to it. I think reading the room's important. I found that, the higher you go up the interview scale, and you probably experience this because you've gone all the way through the sales ranks, is the interviews at the beginning of a sales process normally, right,
Yeah.
are the interview guide. Tell me about a time. We were talking about that earlier,
Yeah.
right? The someone's just reading the
Yeah.
question basically, right? And then the next interviewer is maybe looking for holes from the guide, right? But it's still kind of formal. And by the time they get to the top, the interviews get shorter, but they
Yeah.
become more conversational,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
so you should kind of be prepared for both, right? Like, go in and be able to answer all the, status quo, fill in the blanks question, but be able just to speak to your experience. Like, who are you? What do you do? And be interviewing them, I think, as much as they're interviewing you. But I think the NLP part of it that since you brought that up, is I would, one of the NLP things that we were taught a lot to do that I still use all the time today, but like with a client meeting or whatever, is you can sort of anchor yourself in the embodying the person, either the version of yourself or even a mentor or something like that you want to present. A lot of people get nervous when interviewing. But
Yeah.
what if you could go in and interview like how Michael Jordan plays basketball or whatever, right? And a lot
Yeah.
of times, it's not to be corny, but it's kind of an act as if mentality. It doesn't mean lying. It just means embodying that personality, right?
Yep.
Your
Yeah.
results and their personality for that interview.
Yeah, I mean, you've been through it and you've seen 1,000 sales reps through it. Is that that role play? Like, it's not so much for the thing. It's I need you to be able to say this out loud without the blood rushing out of your head and you wanting to run
Right.
away, and then you
Right.
sound like internally you sound like you're in slow motion in mud, and
Right.
it's that feeling, right? I think I love that piece of, hey, do this out loud and practice, because
Right.
confidence and authenticity, if you can have a confident answer and you can actually appear that you thought it through while they're being asked, it's like that to me is like, oh, present salesperson who's that's what they're going to do out in the field. That's what I
Exactly.
want. Yeah, that's I love how
Exactly.
you put that. That
So you want
anchoring part is good. It's really good.
totally, and you want this confidence without being. There's just this line where and I'm smiling because I can imagine the person I'm thinking of right now, where you've got the usually, kind of young, cocky sales rep that goes right up to the edge, but
Yeah,
doesn't quite tip it over. And you're like, okay, we might have to help this person with their executive acumen, but they're kind of a killer, right?
yeah,
So that's like the over comfortable thing. The other one is like, oh my God, I loved this resume, but they
yeah,
just can't even get the words out of their mouth, like to your point. And
yeah.
I think if you just remember that you're having a conversation with someone that actually wants to hire you, they want to hire you.
Wow,
You know what
that's
I mean?
huge.
They
Yeah,
want you to win. They're not like wasting their time because they had holes in their schedule.
yeah,
They literally want to say yes at the end, and all you have
yeah.
to do is talk authentically about yourself, and that it's just a conversation. That's really
you
all it
don't
is.
you don't think about that
Yeah.
enough. Like I've very rarely thought of. You're right. I do want to hire this person. Like, just
Yeah.
say what I need you to say.
Yeah.
It's
You know how it is when you're the last stop in the interview chain, and you know you need a rep in Cleveland, and they've got a person on Cleveland and everyone liked them, and they get to you. You don't want to deliver the bad news to the whole team of
yeah,
like, hey, the guy from Cleveland just kind of like, didn't
yeah,
make it. But it is indicative, if they're going to freeze in a situation like that, that it also might carry on to like clients and stuff like that.
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah,
And I think role playing is a great example. I'll tell you a very quick story. My wife, this is like 15 years ago, but my wife was stay at home prior to that for like a long time. She'd never had a corporate job, and she wanted this job, and she just had me grill her, to your point. Like, we
yeah,
did like mock interview. She went in there and smashed it. They gave her like a bigger job than what she was asking
yeah,
for. And I feel like most people spend more time planning for like their fantasy football draft than they do for like their next career. You know what I mean? They just,
yeah,
they'll be like, oh, what, okay, who's the third receiver on the
yeah,
Commanders? You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like,
yeah,
oh, and I'm like, can you just like look at the stock price of the company
yeah.
that you're interviewing for? Like, spend as much time at
It's
least.
just that it is that prep. It's 100% that preparation of. I don't like. We planned this interview. It shouldn't have been a surprise that you showed up at this time to talk to us about. And it
Sure.
really, to your point, it's really everything's so accessible on the information we could get on whether the person interviewing And I always say too, it's like, man, call a salesperson. If
Yeah.
you want someone who won't
Good
shut
idea.
up, call a
Yep.
salesperson and be like, hey, what's it like? What would you do? What would you recommend? What should I say? What's the manager like? I mean, just any research. I don't even so much care that you know what we do. But if you give me effort
I
and
care that you tried. I agree.
effort and curiosity, like we're gonna light the world on fire. Because and to your point, that ego is, I love that fire of like, hey, I'm going to crush this. As long as and I think you said it very well, but that respect of the line. Like,
Yes.
I know, I'm right here. Like,
Right.
I'm not
Right.
going anywhere further. Like,
Right.
but that's it. I want that. It's like that Velociraptor mentality where they're constantly testing the fences. It's like
Yes.
those are all signs of a great salesperson coming. And it's like,
Yeah.
ooh, this is exciting. If they can keep going that way we're going,
Yeah.
everyone's hitting the point. But I love that practice and I would say, too, it's like, hey, don't worry about if someone doesn't know how to interview. Like,
Right.
you're gonna walk into a ton of bad people who don't know how to interview. and that's where I think, it's like understanding how you're going to have to guide that conversation back to where you want it so you can make your points.
Right,
To your example with your wife of just going in, they were expecting to offer this job and ended up offering this job just
right,
because blew them away. And
right.
it's those opportunities that you get. But Ken, we're going to have to do this again. First of all, if you're willing to do the time,
Anytime,
I want to be
anytime.
really respectful of your time. But how can people find you? How can people learn more about Leaders Lab, whatnot? I want to make sure we talk about that a little
No,
bit.
no, and I appreciate it. I do want to preface that. In fact, I was going to even take the background down. I'm not here, honestly, to promote the business.
Sure.
Like, we're not doing a lot as far as placing sales reps right now. We're
Okay.
more on the leadership side. Although
Which
we
I
are here to
love.
help. We are here to help. So if someone says, "Hey, can you look at my LinkedIn profile and tell me what you do?" I literally send you a 1 minute voice note back telling you what I think of it. I did want to throw out there, and I'll give it to you that you can maybe send out. But just as we were talking about doing a little research, here's all you need to say to ChatGPT to get everything that you need. I created it right before here. I have an interview with company name for a job title, like put it in there, right? Sales
Yeah.
rep. What are the top 5 questions I should expect, and how should I answer those based on my background? That's one. Another one would be I'm interviewing for this position and just put in the URL for the job description with this company and give them the company's URL. I'm
Hmm.
attaching my resume as well. Based on my resume, the company, and the job, please give me some advice on improving my resume, talking about my past experience in a relevant way, and give me some brief research on the company. So that one prompt would say, here's how to format your resume, right?
Yeah.
Here's what to talk about, and here's some general talking points. It's not cheating because guess what? You're only one in
Yeah.
10 people that's doing that. It's just going to make you stand above and beyond everybody else. You know,
Yeah.
a year ago, using Google wasn't cheating. Do you know what I mean? AI is not
100%.
cheating. It's just more
Yeah.
powerful Google.
There's not enough people doing stuff for leadership for people. I mean, we're hammering square pegs and round holes all over the place, and it's sad.
Sure.
It's sad to
Sure.
see it happen. And so I'm so encouraged. But I mean, I grew up in the Maxwell world of 21-year
Yeah.
feudalism, leadership, and all that stuff. And so it's it's so encouraging to see that kind of, hey, this is a relation. There still are real people in the world. There still are, yeah, people you got to talk to, and then more importantly, being a steward of somebody else's time
Yeah.
is just wildly is a responsibility I hold dear to my heart, and so seeing somebody actively pursuing that and helping companies get better at it is awesome.
Cool. Well, thank you
So
so much,
yeah,
and really good
yeah,
to meet you both. And again,
yeah,
I just like the initiative, and that it came from a place of from you guys of like really just wanting to help. I mean, there's
yeah.
what 200 or 300 people, maybe more. I don't know that just
think it
got
was
80.
around I think it was around 600 people.
Ugh,
And
that's rough.
Michael he's my VP of sales at Environmaster, but
Yep.
he came up through Aramark, so he knows Aramark Vestas really well. And I mean, he was getting call after call, and that's kind of what made me. I got a call from him, and I got a call from some other folks that work there, and they said, "Hey, yeah,
My apologies. I'm jumping over to another meeting, but I'll send you guys.
thank you,
It might be an hour or two, but
no,
before I'm
take
done
your time,
today, I'll send that recording over to you, and I'll send over anything else that I had in preparation of this
appreciate
call
it,
that I think might be good for
yeah,
you. It's all good. Thanks,
awesome,
guys. Good to
yeah,
meet you.
yep, likewise. Take care, Ken.
Bye bye.
Bye."